Hello and welcome to Idea TV News Update. I am Cynthia Bassi. We begin with the headlines. CAPPA urges government action to fight unhealthy food culture and rising NCDS. France returns call of Madagascar king TOERA after 130 years. ELON MUSK'S XAI sues Apple and OPENAI over alleged AI monopoly. NVIDIA'S China business in focus as AI chipmaker. And away from Africa, Reform UK unveils controversial €10 billion plan for mass migrant deportation. And in health, RASHEEDAT AJIBADE joins PSG in landmark transfer move. Still in business, SEC warns Nigerians against GVEST global over illegal investment scheme. In sport, 2 Nigerian swimmers awarded World Aquatic Scholarships. And now the news in full. The Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa CAPPA has called on Nigerian government to urgently implement health policies targeting unhealthy food environments to combat the growing burden of non-communicable diseases, NCDS. CAPPA's Executive Director Akinbode Oluwafemi made the call at the ongoing Youth Bootcamp for Food Justice 2025 in Ikogosi, Ekiti State. Oluwafemi linked the rise in diseases like hypertension, stroke, and diabetes to the increasing consumption of ultra-processed and sugar-laden foods, often aggressively marketed to young people. He stressed that while Nigeria has introduced some policies including a sugar tax and front-of-pack warning label initiatives, the implementation remains weak and public health is suffering as a result. The CAPPA boss emphasized that youth engagement is key in pushing for food justice, urging young Nigerians to take leadership roles in advocacy. Meanwhile, Professor Adelaja Odukoya of the University of Lagos echoed this call, advocating for grassroots movements and systemic change to promote healthier and more equitable food systems across the country. Moving on, France has formally returned the skull of King TOERA of Madagascar centuries after he was killed and decapitated by French colonial troops. The ceremonial handover held at the French Culture Ministry in Paris also included the remains of 2 members of the King's Court. The skulls had been held at the Museum of Natural History in Paris since the late 19th century. King TOERA was a leader of the Sakalava people in western Madagascar. He was killed during the France's brutal colonial campaign in 1897 to assert control over the Manebe Kingdom. His head was taken to France and preserved as a so-called scientific specimen. After years of pressure from his descendants and the Malagasy government, the return marks the first use of a new French law that simplifies the repatriation of human remains from museums' collections. France has previously returned remains from its colonial past, most notably that of Saharan Batman, known as the Hottentot Venus, but this case is seen as a landmark under the new legislation. Experts estimate that more than 20,000 human remains from across the world remain in French museums. The return of King TOERA's skull is being hailed as a step toward justice and reconciliation for former colonies. In other news, billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk has launched a major legal battle against tech giants Apple and OpenAI. Musk's AI startup XAI filed a lawsuit in Texas federal court accusing both companies of engaging in monopolistic practices that stifle innovation and prevent fair competition in the artificial intelligence space. The suit claims Apple and OpenAI have conspired to lock out rivals, particularly by integrating ChatGPT into Apple's operating system while sidelining XAI's own AI chatbot, Grok. The lawsuit seeks billions of dollars in damages and accuses Apple of refusing to feature XAI's Grok app in its App Store rankings despite high ratings. Musk reiterated his claims on his social platform X, alleging that Apple's exclusive deal with OpenAI is blocking Grok and other competitors from gaining visibility. OpenAI dismissed the suit as part of what it's called Musk's ongoing pattern of harassment. Apple has not yet commented on the case. Legal experts say this case could become a landmark antitrust test for AI industry. They note Apple's dominant market position could strengthen XAI's argument that it's unfairly tying iPhone sales to OpenAI's technology. However, Apple may counter that its partnership with OpenAI is simply a competitive business decision. Beyond the immediate claims, the suit could force U.S. courts to define what constitutes the AI market, potentially setting legal precedent for future antitrust regulation in the tech sector. Still in AI news, investors are turning their attention to NVIDIA'S business in China as the AI chip giant gets set to report earnings on Wednesday. The company caught in the ongoing U.S.-China trade war recently agreed to pay 15% of its China sales to the U.S. government in exchange for export licenses, a move that has sparked bipartisan criticism. Despite strong demand for NVIDIA chips in China, Beijing has advised domestic firms to cut back on purchases, raising questions about future growth in the region. The uncertainty has already had financial consequences. NVIDIA previously warned that export curbs could wipe $8 billion off its revenue, and the company took a $4.5 billion charge in the prior quarter. For the second quarter ending July 2025, analysts expect a 53% year-on-year revenue increase to $46.02 billion, a slower pace compared to its earlier triple-digit growth streak. Notably, many analysts didn't factor in any China-specific sales, given the late U.S. approval and China's growing resistance. Looking ahead, NVIDIA is projected to guide third-quarter revenue at $52.96 billion, with about $6 billion possibly coming from China if tensions ease. However, analysts warn the federal export deal could hurt profitability, potentially reducing gross margins on China-bound chips by up to 15 percentage points. CEO Jensen Huang's commentary will be closely watched as investor optimism around AI stocks has recently cooled amid concerns about overvaluation. And away from Africa, the Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has unveiled an ambitious and controversial 5-year plan aimed at detaining and deporting up to 600,000 migrants who enter the UK without permission. Under the proposed Operation Restoring Justice, Farage said his government would bar asylum claims from those arriving via small boats, build new detention centers, and strike return deals with countries like Afghanistan and Eritrea. The party says it would allocate €2 billion to incentivize returns agreements, offering aid to cooperative nations and threatening sanctions on those unwilling to accept deportees. Migrants would also be offered €2,500 for voluntary return under what reform calls a carrot and stick approach. A new bill would be introduced to override international treaties such as the Refugee Convention and the European Convention on Human Rights measures that have drawn criticism from human rights advocates and opposition parties. While reform argues the plan will save long-term costs associated with asylum housing, critics have labeled it unworkable. Labour warned the policy relies on unrealistic assumptions about foreign cooperation, and the Liberal Democrats called it a fantasy. The Conservative Party, meanwhile, accused reform of recycling its existing proposals without offering new solutions. We go on a quick break now. The news continues when we return. Welcome back. If you're just joining, this is Idea TV News Update. Now the rest of the news continues. In health in Botswana, President Duma Boko has declared a national public health emergency as the country grapples with severe shortages of essential medicines and medical equipment. In a televised address on Monday, President Boko announced an emergency plan worth 250 million pula, around 18.3 million US dollars, with military oversight to restore the failing health supply chain. The Southern African nation, home to 2.5 million people, has been hit hard by a downturn in the global diamond market and cuts to U.S. aid, notably for HIV treatment. The Health Ministry has reported over $1 billion pula in debt, largely due to patient referrals to private hospitals and shortages in life-saving treatments for cancer, HIV, and tuberculosis. Elective and non-urgent procedures, including organ transplants, have been suspended. Despite this crisis, the government says it is confident of recovery. The first delivery trucks left the capital, Gaborone, and on Monday under military coordination, aiming to reach remote areas the same day. UNICEF has backed the president's call urging urgent action to protect children, especially in malnourished regions like Dakar. President Boko, who came to power last year after a historic election win, says fixing the health sector is now a national priority. And moving on to business news, the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, has issued a strong warning to Nigerians, advising them to steer clear of GVEST Global and its affiliated entities over what it describes as illegal investment activities. In a statement released on Monday, the SEC revealed that GVEST Global is not a registered investment advisor or fund manager in Nigeria and is promoting schemes that exhibit clear signs of a Ponzi operation. The Commission identified several names under which the company operates, including GVEST, Alaosa Cooperative Multipurpose Limited, GVEST Investment Limited, and GTEX Holdings. According to investigations, GVEST has been aggressively marketed through social media and online platforms, targeting unsuspecting investors with unrealistic returns. The SEC emphasized that the public engages with GVEST Global at their own risk and urged Nigerians to verify the registration status of any investment company via the Commission's official website. The regulator reiterated its commitment to protecting investors and cracking down on fraudulent schemes in the capital markets. And lastly, in sports, in a major boost for African women's football, Super Falcons captain RASHEEDAT AJIBADE has signed a 2-year contract with French powerhouse Paris Saint-Germain. The 24-year-old forward completed the move after parting ways with Atletico de Madrid at the end of last season. AJIBADE, who led Nigeria to victory at the 2024 Women's African World Cup of Nations and was named player of the tournament, expressed her excitement, calling the move a major step in her career. She joins fellow Nigerian Jennifer Echegini at PSG as the club looks to reclaim the League One feminine title, the last one in 2021. The signing is seen as a statement of intent by PSG's women's team, with AJIBADE expected to play a key role in their domestic and European campaigns. Her arrival also marks another milestone for Nigerian footballers, marking their mark on the global stage. And that's all we have for you on Idea TV News Update. But before we go, here is a recap of the headlines. We brought to you news that CAPPA urges government action to fight unhealthy food culture and rising NCDS. We also brought to you news that France returns call of Madagascar King TOERA after 130 years. We also brought to you news that ELON MUSK'S XAI sues Apple and OPENAI over alleged AI monopoly. We brought to you news that NVIDIA'S China business in focus as AI chipmaker. And away from Africa, Reform UK unveils controversial €10 billion plan for mass migrant deportations. In health, Rasheedat AJIBADE joins PSG in landmark transfer move. And in still in business, SEC warns Nigerians against GVEST Global over illegal investment scheme. And lastly, in sports, 2 Nigerian swimmers awarded World Aquatic Scholarships. Do not forget to follow us across all our social media platforms at Idea Television. My name is Cynthia Bassi. Thank you for watching.